In the cold emptiness of space, far beyond the reach of any human starship, the Galactic Council gathered. Their meeting chamber was massive. It was not built from stone or metal like human buildings. Instead, it was made of light, energy, and floating holograms. Stars moved slowly across the walls. Entire planets rotated in silence above the central floor. Every being in the room was different. Some had many arms. Some had glowing eyes. Some had forms that humans could not even imagine. Yet all of them were intelligent enough to rule parts of the galaxy. And today, they were all looking at one small blue planet. Earth. The hologram of Earth floated in the center of the chamber. It looked peaceful. Clouds moved slowly. Oceans shimmered under sunlight. To any outside observer, it seemed like a simple, developing world. A junior council officer spoke first. Planet designation, Terra. Level of development, early industrial. No confirmed interstellar travel. Another officer added calmly, population is growing. Technology is basic. No threat detected. There was a long silence after that. Most of the council members lost interest quickly. They had seen thousands of worlds like this before. Weak species. Slow development. No danger. No importance. One council leader leaned back in his floating seat and said, almost bored, we can ignore it. It will not affect the galaxy. A few members agreed. Some even began to review other star systems. But not everyone looked away. In the far corner of the chamber sat an old observer. His species was ancient, known for watching civilizations rise and fall. He did not speak often. He did not interrupt meetings. But he was watching Earth closely. Very closely. His eyes did not move away from the hologram. He whispered, more to himself than anyone else, strange, this one feels different. No one heard him clearly. And no one cared enough to ask. The council continued discussing other matters, trade routes, energy fields, and political disputes between star systems. But Earth remained on the central display. The old observer zoomed in the image. Cities appeared. Roads, buildings, moving vehicles. Humans were visible now, small figures moving quickly across their world. They were weak compared to other species. No armor. No advanced biology. No natural weapons. Nothing special. At least, that is what most council members believed. But the observer noticed something else. He saw humans surviving in deserts where water was rare. He saw them building cities in freezing lands. He saw them living near dangerous volcanoes. He saw wars, destruction, rebuilding, again and again. They did not give up. Even when everything was broken, they rebuilt. The observer tilted his head slightly. Interesting, he thought. A nearby council member noticed his focus and laughed softly. You are studying that primitive world? Why? The old observer replied quietly, they are not strong. But they do not stop. The council member waved a hand dismissively. Many species resist. It means nothing. They will eventually fail like the rest. But the observer did not respond. He continued watching. Suddenly, a small alert appeared in the hologram. A deep space signal had been detected from Earth's direction. It was weak, random, and unclassified. An early warning signal. A sign that something unknown had reached Earth's space perimeter. The chamber briefly turned silent. One officer checked the data and said, it appears to be a minor object. Possibly a natural space fragment. Another nodded. No threat level assigned. The council quickly lost interest again. The signal was marked as irrelevant. And deleted from priority systems. But the old observer did not look away. He watched the Earth hologram for a long moment, longer than anyone else. Something about it did not feel random. Not at all. Still, he said nothing more. The Galactic Council returned to its discussions. Earth remained on the screen. Silent. Unimportant. Ignored. But somewhere deep in space, something had already touched the edge of humanity's world. And no one in the room understood what that would soon awaken. In the vast silence of space, the Galactic Council had almost forgotten Earth. The meeting chamber had moved on to other systems, other trade routes, and other political issues. The hologram of Earth still floated in the center, but now it was dimmed, marked as low priority. Most council members were no longer paying attention. But something was already moving toward Earth. Unseen. Unnoticed. A small probe had been sent days earlier. It was not meant to cause harm. It was a simple machine. A watcher. A scanner. It carried no weapons. Only sensors and data collectors. Its mission was clear. Observe Earth quietly. Confirm its weakness. End report. The probe entered Earth's orbit like a falling shadow. At first, everything seemed normal. It scanned oceans. It scanned cities. It scanned weather patterns and communication signals. It recorded human behavior, traffic movement, construction, energy use, and military activity. On the Galactic Council screen, the data looked simple. Primitive technology. Weak signals. No interstellar capability. A council member said calmly, as expected. No surprise here. Another added with boredom, they are predictable. No need for concern. But then something unexpected happened. The probe changed direction. Not because it wanted to. Because it was detected. Earth's satellites had noticed it. Human systems did not understand what it was, but they knew something was there. A foreign object. Unknown. Not natural. Within seconds, Earth reacted. Military networks activated. Radar systems locked on. Communication channels filled with alerts. The probe tried to remain hidden, but it was too late. Human defense systems fired, not advanced enough to fully understand the target, but fast enough to respond. Missiles launched. The probe sent its final report. Detection compromised. Hostile reaction initiated. Survival chance, 0. Then it was gone. On the Galactic Council screen, the signal from Earth suddenly disappeared. A small silence followed. One officer frowned. That should not have happened. Another replied quickly, it may have been a coincidence. Primitive species sometimes react aggressively to unknown objects. The council leader nodded slowly. Yes. A misunderstanding. Nothing more. The event was marked as non-critical anomaly. And the discussion moved on. But in the corner of the chamber, the old observer remained still. His eyes narrowed slightly. That was not confusion, he said softly. No one replied. A second probe was ordered. This time, larger. Stronger. More advanced. It was designed not just to observe, but to survive minor resistance. It entered Earth's orbit quietly, avoiding known detection paths. Again, it scanned the planet. Again, it collected data. And again, Earth reacted. But this time, faster. Within moments, human systems locked on with greater coordination. Radar networks worked together. Air defense units aligned. Satellite tracking improved instantly as data was shared globally. The second probe attempted to escape. It did not get the chance. Human response was not perfect. But it was fast. Relentless. Adaptive. On the council screen, the probe's signal flickered. Then stopped. No explosion was clearly visible. No dramatic destruction. Just silence. A missing signal. Gone. The chamber became quiet again, but this time, it was different. Not boredom. Curiosity. A council member leaned forward slightly. That should not have been possible. Another replied, it is still likely a system error. Primitive worlds often produce unpredictable interference. But the old observer spoke again. His voice was low. Calm. But serious. It was not interference. The room slowly turned toward him. He continued, they saw it. And they removed it. A pause followed. Then a council officer laughed nervously. A primitive species detecting advanced stealth probes? Impossible. But the observer did not smile. He only looked at Earth. Now the hologram was no longer dim. It was marked. Not as harmless. Not as unknown. But as unpredictable. And in the silence of space, Earth remained quiet. Still unaware that the galaxy had already started watching it more carefully. For the first time. The Galactic Council did not look away immediately. After the disappearance of the second probe, the Galactic Council chamber changed. It was still large. Still bright. Still filled with moving stars and holographic systems. But the feeling inside the room was no longer calm. It was slightly heavier. Not fear yet, but curiosity mixed with confusion. Earth's image stayed in the center display, now marked as unpredictable anomaly. Most council members still did not take it seriously. A senior officer spoke first. It is still a primitive civilization. Their reaction is likely random defense behavior. Another nodded. They are reacting to unknown objects. Nothing more. But the old observer did not agree. He quietly said, they are not reacting randomly. They are learning. No one responded. A decision was made quickly. If Earth could destroy probes, then it should be tested properly. Not with full force. Not with war. But with a controlled military demonstration. A small strike unit was approved. A peaceful evaluation force, as they called it. In truth, it was a test. To confirm Earth's limits. The arrival of the test force. The third contact with Earth was different. A small fleet entered Earth's orbit. This time, it was not hidden. It was visible. Massive ships appeared above the planet like silent shadows. Human radar systems immediately detected them. Across Earth, alerts spread faster than ever before. Every military base reacted at once. Humans did not understand what they were seeing, but they understood one thing clearly. Something was in their sky. And it was not human. On the Galactic Council screen, council members watched carefully. This should end quickly, one said. Show them power. They will stop resisting. The fleet sent a simple message toward Earth. Do not resist. Observe and comply. But Earth did not comply. Instead, it responded. Not with words. With action. High-voltage human response begins. Missiles launched from Earth's surface. Not perfect. Not advanced enough to reach alien ships. But fast. Constant. Uncontrolled. The alien fleet's defense systems activated immediately. Most missiles were destroyed in the air. But not all. Some got closer than expected. Very close. The fleet commander reported confusion. These are primitive weapons, but their coordination is improving mid-engagement. On Earth, human forces were not coordinated by a single mind. They were scattered across nations. But something strange was happening. They were adapting. Fast. Radar data was shared globally in real time. Targets were adjusted. New firing patterns were created within minutes. Humanity was not acting like a weak species. It was acting like a species that learns under pressure. First, damage to the fleet. One missile struck a minor shield generator on an alien ship. It was not enough to destroy it. But it was enough to damage it. The Galactic Council chamber went silent for a moment. An officer frowned. That should not be possible. Another quickly responded, it was likely a lucky hit. But then another report came in. Second impact. Then third. Small damages. Not catastrophic. But real. The fleet began adjusting formations. On Earth, humans did not stop. They increased attacks. Not because they were winning. But because they refused to stop. The shift in perception. The test force was expected to show dominance easily. Instead, it was struggling. Not losing. But not winning either. That was the problem. The Galactic Council had never expected this. A primitive world should have broken immediately. Instead, it was resisting. Adapting. Learning. Fighting back without hesitation. The old observer finally spoke again. His voice was quiet, but heavy. You are still treating them like weak life forms. A council member replied, they are weak. Their technology is inferior. The observer looked at the Earth hologram. Then he said, strength is not only technology. Silence filled the chamber. On the screen, Earth's defenses continued firing. Ships above the planet adjusted again. But something had changed. The Galactic Council was no longer watching a harmless world. They were watching a species that refused to behave like one. And for the first time, the word dangerous appeared quietly in a few council reports. Even if no one wanted to admit it yet. The Galactic Council did not speak for a long time after the report ended. The chamber remained bright, but the atmosphere inside it had changed. The hologram of Earth still floated in the center, showing a planet that looked calm from a distance. Oceans moved slowly. Clouds drifted like nothing had happened. It almost looked peaceful again. But everyone in the room now knew it was not peaceful. The third contact fleet was still in orbit around Earth, adjusting its position after the unexpected resistance. What was supposed to be a simple demonstration had turned into a complicated situation. Not a defeat, but not control either. That was what disturbed the council most. A senior officer finally broke the silence. His voice was less confident than before. The human response is increasing in coordination. Their systems are not stable, but they are improving during the engagement. Another council member replied quickly, trying to keep control of the situation. They are still primitive. Their weapons cannot threaten our ships directly. There is no need for concern. But even as he spoke, another alert appeared on the main display. A small alien support craft had been hit again. Damage was not critical, but it was increasing. The humans were learning where to aim. Learning where to strike. And more importantly, learning how to survive the return fire. The old observer watched everything without moving. His eyes followed the patterns, not the explosions. Not the damage. But the behavior. He spoke again, quietly. They are not fighting like a weak species. A council member finally turned toward him, irritated. And what would a weak species do differently? The observer answered without hesitation. They would panic. They would scatter. They would stop after failure. He paused for a moment. But these ones, they continue. They change. On Earth, humanity was no longer reacting blindly. Communication networks had merged into faster systems. Military commands were being shared between regions that had never cooperated so closely before. Satellites were constantly updating positions of the alien ships. Ground systems were recalculating firing solutions every few seconds. There was confusion on the surface, but there was also adaptation forming inside that chaos. No single leader controlled it all. Yet somehow, responses were becoming more efficient. The Galactic Council noticed this shift as well. One analyst spoke with uncertainty. Their coordination is not centralized. It should slow them down. Instead, it is accelerating their reaction speed. Another replied, it is impossible for a divided species to adapt this quickly. But the data did not change. Humanity was improving in real time. The alien fleet attempted a new tactic. Instead of staying in orbit, they shifted position to simulate a controlled pressure test. Energy pulses were fired toward the surface, meant to disable systems without destruction. It was still meant to be non-lethal. Still meant to be a test. But Earth did not interpret it that way. Human defense systems escalated immediately. Now the response was not just defensive. It was aggressive. Missile strikes increased. Anti-orbital weapons activated from multiple regions. Even experimental systems, never meant for real conflict, were brought online and fired. On the Galactic Council screen, the engagement map became more complex. No longer a simple observation. It had turned into a full dynamic battlefield analysis. A council member frowned. This is becoming inefficient. The test should be concluded. Another added, we are still within control parameters. There is no need to escalate further. But the old observer finally spoke louder than before. If you continue to underestimate them, control will not remain yours. That statement caused a brief silence. The council leader narrowed his eyes. You are suggesting this species is a threat to us? The observer looked at Earth again. For the first time, his answer was not immediate. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but firm. I am suggesting you have already made your first mistake. The words hung in the chamber. No one responded right away. On the display, another alien support unit was forced to retreat from low orbit after sustained human pressure. It was not a victory for Earth. Not yet. But it was no longer a one-sided demonstration either. Something had shifted. The Council had arrived expecting to evaluate a weak species. Instead, they were now watching a civilization that refused to behave like one. And somewhere deep in the systems of the Galactic Council, new classification updates were being prepared. Still unconfirmed. Still debated. But one word was beginning to appear in hidden reports more often than before. Unpredictable, evolving, persistent. And Earth continued to fight, unaware that the galaxy had stopped treating it as background noise. The engagement above Earth did not end quickly. What was expected to be a short demonstration had turned into something that no council member fully wanted to name yet. The fleet in orbit was still intact, but its formation was no longer clean. Small adjustments were being made constantly, as if the situation refused to settle into control. On the Galactic Council screen, Earth was no longer just a simple blue planet. It was now covered in shifting layers of tactical overlays, impact zones, and rapidly changing defense patterns. A few council members were still trying to hold on to the original assumption. It is still a primitive world, one of them said. Their success is temporary. Based on numbers, they cannot sustain this level of resistance. Another added quickly, their energy output is already unstable. They will collapse under continued pressure. But the data did not fully support those statements anymore. The old observer remained silent for a long moment. His attention was not on the fleet anymore. It was on Earth itself. On the behavior underneath the weapons. On the way systems were reacting, not just fighting. Then he finally spoke. They are no longer only reacting. The council leader looked at him. Explain. The observer did not look away from the display. They are predicting. A brief silence followed. On Earth, this shift was becoming visible in real time. Human defense systems were no longer responding only to incoming attacks. They were beginning to anticipate them. Movement patterns of the alien fleet were being tracked and analyzed. Defensive fire was being adjusted before strikes even fully developed. Entire regions of Earth were sharing data at speeds that had not existed before this conflict. It was not perfect. There were still losses. Still confusion. Still fear on the ground. But something deeper was forming beneath it. Adaptation under pressure. The alien fleet commander noticed this change as well. His report to the council was direct. They are adjusting faster than expected. Every exchange reduces the effectiveness of our previous tactics. A council analyst replied, that should not be possible at their technological level. But it was happening anyway. A new attempt was made. The fleet shifted into a wider formation, designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses with layered strikes from multiple directions. It was a controlled escalation, still within non-extermination parameters, but significantly stronger than before. On Earth, warning systems lit up across multiple continents at once. Human command structures reacted instantly. But this time, there was hesitation. Not because they were unprepared. Because the pattern itself had changed. The incoming threat was no longer simple. It was coordinated, distributed, and adaptive. For a moment, even human systems struggled to respond efficiently. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of breaking apart, human networks tightened. Military and civilian systems began sharing data in ways that had never been fully tested before. Emergency protocols activated across nations simultaneously. Weapon systems that were never designed to work together began synchronizing through improvised connections. It was not a perfect system. But it was becoming one. The first wave of alien strikes hit Earth's outer defense layers. Some were intercepted. Some were not. But the response that followed was immediate and concentrated. Human counterattacks targeted the weakest points in the alien formation. Not randomly. Not blindly. But with increasing precision. On the council screen, damage reports started to accumulate again. A council member finally said, they are coordinating across independent systems. That should create delays, not efficiency. The old observer responded quietly. It would, for most species. He paused. Unless survival forces them to become something else. The fleet in orbit began another adjustment. Energy readings showed increased defensive activity from Earth, but also something new, resource allocation was changing on the surface. Industrial zones were being repurposed. Civilian infrastructure was being redirected. Entire regions of the planet were shifting priorities in real time. Earth was reorganizing itself under pressure. Not calmly. Not perfectly. But continuously. The council leader finally leaned forward. This is still not a threat-level event. They are adapting, yes. But they remain far below galactic standards. The observer looked at him for the first time in a while. Then he said something that made the room feel slightly colder. They are not trying to match your standards. He turned back to Earth. They are trying to survive you. On the screen, another alien formation adjusted its position again. But this time, the humans were already waiting for it. The engagement had stopped being a test. It was now a loop of action and reaction, each side learning from the other. And for the first time since the beginning,